Hi everybody, this is a video summary of our lesson for Tuesday, March 21st. I started out the class handing back the Chemical Reactions Chapter 1, Scientific Argument. So will you please take a minute, check your grade in Schoology. Some of you that have been gone for quite a long time need to turn that in. And if you don't understand what you're supposed to do, you need to make sure that you reach out to me and I can help you with that. Also, let me know if you've got any questions based on the comments that I made. And then I had the kids just jump on to Chemical Reactions 2.2, and we started doing the activity, the warm-up activity. So let me start there with you. I just want to summarize what we did today real quick. So hopefully it won't take more than about 15 minutes for this video. So we had in yesterday's video, if you were gone, you saw that we had 3 claims. We had the claim 1 that the iron pipes transferred or transformed or changed into rust. Claim number 2 said the fertilizer changed into rust. And claim number 3 said the iron pipes and the fertilizer changed into rust. And remember, we're trying to figure out which claim is correct and which one is best able to explain how the rust in Westfield's water may have formed. So the warm-up in today is going to ask you to go to the sim, and I'm going to just go there real quick. You're going to go into the simulation, and you are going to find out what happens when 2.2, right? Find out what happens when you try to take water and see if a chemical reaction can happen with one substance. So yesterday we saw when we combined 2 substances, there was a chemical reaction. And I want to make sure that I'm in laboratory A mode. I am. What I'd like you to do is you're going to just add water. Okay, we're not going to add a second substance at all. I want to know what happens. Can water change to a different substance? Can there be a chemical reaction with only water? So let's go ahead and test it. Notice in that kind of half circle, that gray half circle, what the lab conditions are. And you'll notice that, I'm going to play that again because I asked you guys to take a look at that. So this is under the lab conditions that electricity was added to the water and the water was room temperature. And this is what happens. I don't know why that happened. That was odd. Okay. So we started out with H2O, and what our results were that we had a chemical reaction in which there was hydrogen and oxygen that formed. So when you look at your review, you see that on the reactant side, we would say water yields, or H2O, yields hydrogen, H2, and oxygen, O2. Now, you would have to have the right number of molecules for that. We'll discuss that a little bit later. But coming back to your lesson, we've spent a little bit of time discussing that warm-up activity and just asking, what happened to the water? And the kids were like, well, yeah, you can. And so I just want to remind you of key concept number 5. And that says during a chemical reaction, one or more starting substances or reactants can change into one or more different substances. So we don't have to have 2 reactants and 2 products every time. We could have 1 or more reactants, and that would turn into 1 or more products. I spent some time talking to them also about just noticing that the conditions were just right and that the water only reacts by itself with electricity. If we just left water on the counter by itself, it would evaporate. And that's a phase change, not a chemical change. So golly, I don't know if you guys can see all these texts that are coming through from my daughter. Anyway, oh my gosh, she's driving me nuts. So anyway, yesterday we saw a chemical reaction, And we saw that it could happen when we mix two substances. So that evidence suggests that claim number 3 is possible, because claim 3 says that the iron pipes and the fertilizer changed into rust. However, what we just saw in the sim for our warm-up says, you know what, I could have one reactant and that could change into one substance or one product. So chemical reactions can also happen with only one substance. So that evidence suggests that claims 1 and 2 are also possible. What this is telling us is we need more evidence before we can answer the chapter 2 question, how did the rust form? We're going to be investigating the question, how do substances change into different substances during chemical reactions? We are going to take some time and investigate how substances change into new substances in the sim by making detailed observations about those chemical reactions. So you'll be in laboratory A. I want you to test different substances to find 2 substances that react when they're mixed together and 2 substances that do not react when they're mixed together. So when you're in Amplify, we're now in lesson 2.2. We're in activity number 2. I'm going to have you follow the directions here, and then you're going to answer the questions. I do want you to do that. I'm going to have you do that on your own, okay? And that's something that you and I can discuss when you come back. When a chemical reaction occurs, what happens to the atoms of the 2 substances? And then when a chemical reaction does not occur, what happens to the atoms of the 2 substances? And then did any of those atoms ever change type? So please pause this video and go ahead and do the experiment. Try that, please. And then come back. So after you answered these questions, I want you to Amplify right here on your activity number 2. You've got these questions answered. Please make sure that you hand those in so I can check your progress there. And then the last thing we did in class is we used tokens to explain chemical reactions. Let me show you what I mean. The kids had these chemical reaction cards. There's A and B, and they have different chemical reactions on A than what they have on B. And then the table partners had this cup full of different colored tokens, and the colored tokens match with the color of the atom that's in the molecules on their card. Okay, so like their hydrogen atoms were white and the chlorine atoms were green, etc. Okay, and so what they did is they explained to their partner what happened during a chemical reaction by manipulating those tokens. And let me just kind of explain what I would say. So if I were explaining the chemical reaction to a partner, first I would take out all the tokens for the hydrogen and the oxygen. And so I would need 6 hydrogen and I would need 2 oxygen, okay? Because the card shows me that I have 2 molecules of hydrogen, H2, and 1 molecule of oxygen. So, and I would lay those tokens on top of those, okay? And then, I'm going to do a slideshow. Okay, and then what I would do is I would build the reactants by placing the tokens on the atoms that they represent. So just go ahead and lay those tokens on top. And then I would talk about how in order for the reactants to go through a chemical reaction and become a product, they would have to break apart, they have to rearrange to form these new molecules. Okay, so hopefully you understand what we did with the tokens there. So this shows the final product, which is water, built with the tokens from the reactants. So I gave the kids time to do that activity with their cards, and I left this list of vocabulary terms that I want them to use when they explain how the reactants became the products. Remember, the reactants are on the left side of the arrow, and the products are on the right side of the arrow. So when they were finished, we just talked about key concept number 6, and that says during a chemical reaction, atoms do not change from one type to another. That's super important. Let me come back here. So as I was putting my tokens on here, during this chemical reaction, my oxygen broke apart from the first bond in the reactant and it rearranged to form a new molecule, but it did not change the type of atom. So even though one substance can become another substance, the atoms that are used to build those substances do not change. And that's a really, really important key concept to remember. So that was key concept number 6. And let me read that again. During a chemical reaction, atoms do not change from one type to another. And then key concept number 7, during a chemical reaction, atoms rearrange to form different groups of atoms. So that is the most important key concept right now in chapter 2. During a chemical reaction, atoms rearrange to form different groups of atoms. So now we can answer our question, how do substances change into different substances during a chemical reaction? And it is just key concept number 7. Now, I don't want you to write down ever just key concept number 7. You need to know those key concepts well enough that you're able to write them out. Okay? Vocabulary terms for this lesson, chemical reaction. It's a process in which atoms rearrange to form new substances. And then the word rearrange is to change the order or the position of something. All right, you guys, that's it for today. Hopefully I see you tomorrow.